Welcome to the layer by layer overview of Psalm 93. A way to remember this psalm is with the phrase, "Your throne is stable." In this psalm, the stability of the Lord's throne guarantees the stability of his covenant, which his people need to know. The psalm is short, having only 5 verses, but we can helpfully break it into 3 sections. In the first, King forever, the Lord is described as clothed in majesty and strength, with a throne that is stable. In the second, futile threats, the seas unsuccessfully attempt to shake the throne, but the Lord remains secure in his majesty. In the third section, trustworthy forever, the fact that the Lord remains secure on his throne means that his decrees are equally secure as trustworthy decrees, and his rule is still characterized by holiness. The emotional tone of the psalm is important for understanding it correctly. The first section, where the Lord reigns in majesty on a secure throne, has a tone of awe and confidence. The second, where the waves unsuccessfully attempt to crush the Lord's throne, has a dismissive tone, mocking the waves for their inability to ever endanger the Lord's throne. This is joined, however, by a sober acknowledgement of the power they do have. The third section, focusing on trustworthy decrees, resumes the tone of confidence. Both the Lord's decrees and the Lord's holiness are proclaimed trustworthy, in no way endangered by the circumstances. We'll now walk through the poem, explaining it verse by verse. This psalm has no superscription, but begins immediately with the first section, celebrating the Lord's kingship. The position of the psalm in the Book of Psalms, in Book 4, suggests a setting after the exile, which means that the line of kings in Israel has failed. It may be asked whether the entire covenant was a failure. Without a king in Jerusalem, could the covenant still stand? We begin with our first section, King forever. This psalm begins by asserting that the kingship in Israel has not failed at all. Verse 1, the Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with majesty. He is armed with strength. What's more, the world remains stable without moving. The psalm opens with wording, here translated, the Lord reigns, that is best interpreted as, the Lord has been confirmed as king. A new stage of his reign has started. This does not mean he was not a king before, but it is as if his kingdom has been extended. Therefore, it is appropriate to say that he has begun a new stage of reigning. This makes the most sense in the context of the return from exile. Both the kingdoms of Israel and Judah had been exiled, defeated, taken from their land to live far away in Assyria and Babylon. When the nation was allowed to return to their land, it signified that their God, the Lord, was superior to the Babylonian gods, and indeed superior to all gods. During the exile, the Babylonian gods would be the ones perceived to reign. Once again, however, it is the Lord who now reigns. To say the Lord is clothed with majesty means that all who interact with him recognize that he is majestic. There's a clever use of language here. The word majesty is rare and is used in Psalm 89:10 to describe the rising up of the waves, which are ruled by the Lord. A similar word is used in the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15 to describe the Lord's being exalted over the waves of the Red Sea. The Lord is not just majestic, but he is superior to and exalted over all waves. He is exalted over the sea being frequently used to symbolize chaos, which continually attempted to threaten the Lord's reign. Not only is his reign confirmed, but the Lord has unquestioned superiority over any threat. This theme will become even clearer in the rest of the psalm. He is armed with strength, refers to the power that enables the Lord to control the forces of nature. If he can control the forces of nature, it shows he has authority over them, which means nothing is beyond his control. It makes complete sense, then, to say that the world he created remains stable, without moving. In a time when the whole country was in turmoil, the people needed the message that something remained stable, without moving. This psalm proclaims that the turmoil was local to Israel, because the earth itself remained as stable as it had been, dependent on the Lord's strength and not on Israel's current circumstances. Verse 2, your throne has been stable from long ago. You have existed from eternity. If the earth has remained stable, the same is true for the Lord's own throne, symbolizing his authority over the earth. There is a possible tension between verse 1 and verse 2. As mentioned in verse 1, in the Hebrew, the Lord reigns includes the distinction that the Lord has begun to reign, or the Lord has been confirmed to reign again. There is something new about his reign. On the other hand, here in verse 2, his throne has been stable. How can there be something new and there be stability at the same time? This is the core of the psalm, wrestling with Israel's experience of devastating defeat while still singing of the Lord's matchless strength and majesty. The Lord's throne depends on his strength, and since his strength is permanent, so is his throne. He established it when he created the world, setting it on its foundations, and his throne has been unshaken since then. It has endured throughout time, from eternity past. Futile threats. The stability of the Lord's throne becomes more impressive when we understand that there is rebellion that constantly attempts to endanger his throne. In Genesis 1, the dry land was separated from the seas. The stability of the world is often pictured as the dry land staying dry land against the threat of the seas that would rise and submerge the land. Verse 3, the seas have lifted up their noise, Lord. The seas have lifted up their noise. The seas would continually lift up their crushing waves. In ancient cosmology, the seas were the typical enemy whom God needed to defeat. Here, in Psalm 93, they serve as a poetic representation of Israel's own enemies, specifically the Babylonians, who successfully defeated the nation and exiled the people for 70 years. The image here is that the seas continually lifted up their noise. The noise of the sea is the roar of the waves. In Hebrew, to lift up a noise, or one's voice, is to make a very loud sound. Here, the waves are roaring in protest against the Lord, sending crushing waves, attempting to unseat his throne and shake the foundations of the earth. Verse 4, more than the sounds of many waters, the waves of the sea are majestic. The Lord is majestic in the high place. It was unsuccessful, however, No matter how loud the sound of the waters became, no matter how majestic the waves of the sea, it could never overwhelm the Lord. He remains majestic in the high place, meaning out of reach of any threat from the sea. The mention of many waters and majestic seas is a reminder of the intensity of the threat Israel faced as a nation. The nation was not secure. Looking at the history from that time, the conquering nation, Babylon, was the majestic and powerful one. No matter how majestic and powerful the waves or Babylon, it did not affect the Lord, who remained on high, untouchable. This was the hope of Israel. Even while the nation suffered, her God was still the supreme authority. This concept would not make sense according to the common understanding of God at that time. People generally believed that a defeated people meant their God had also been defeated. But since the beginning of the covenant, Israel's God had even prophesied curses, defeat, and exile, all as part of the covenant. This meant that there could still be hope, even in exile, for the covenant to still stand. This leads to the heart of the psalm. Trustworthy forever. If the Lord's throne was stable, then what did that mean for his people and the covenant he established with them? What did that mean for the nation of Israel if they returned from exile and wondered what the defeat of Jerusalem and the exile of the people meant for the covenant, which was supposed to be everlasting? The psalm has a very clear answer. Verse 5. Your decrees are entirely trustworthy. Holiness is fitting for your house, Lord, forever. Like the Lord's throne, eternally stable and in no way threatened by the pounding of the seas, the Lord's decrees are equally trustworthy, in no way endangered by defeat or exile. The decrees may refer directly to the covenant between a king and his people, established when he received his crown, as we find in 2 Kings 11:12, when Jehoiada the priest proclaimed the boy Joash as king. Then he brought out the king's son and put the crown on him and gave him the decrees. And they proclaimed him king and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king!" The decrees may also be described as having been founded or established, just like the Lord founded or established the earth itself. In Psalm 119, verse 152, I know from your decrees of old that you have established them forever. And in Psalm 24, verses 1 and 2, the earth is the Lord's and all that it holds, the world and its inhabitants, for he established it upon the seas and set it upon the rivers. As a representation of the covenant with the Lord, the decrees being entirely trustworthy means the covenant is entirely trustworthy. The Lord established them just as he established the earth. If the earth remains stable, so too is his covenant, as represented by his decrees. Holiness also remains fitting for the Lord's house. Holiness is the absolute devotion to the realm of God and his service. The Lord's devotion to his righteousness motivates all that happened. Holiness motivated the judgment that led to exile, and holiness motivated the return from exile once the judgment had served its purpose. Holiness is still the primary characteristic of the Lord's house, meaning the primary characteristic of the Lord himself. This means that Israel is still in covenant with the Lord, with defeat and exile being a part of that covenant and not a danger to the covenant. Holiness remains the explanation for both the exile and the return, because holiness explains who the Lord is and why he does what he does. Psalm 93 is short but powerful. The Lord reigns despite any fears that he might not. He continues to be clothed in majesty and is in no way lessened by the victories of the Babylonian or any other gods. The Lord remains the supreme authority. This means the earth he established is stable, and so too is his throne, representing his dominion over all the earth. No matter how much the seas rage, roaring in rebellion against the Lord, he remains firmly established and eternally majestic, superior and beyond their reach. The absolute supremacy of the Lord forms the foundation for how Israel can understand her own relationship with him, pictured here as the decrees that established that relationship in the covenant. Because the Lord is secure, the decrees are equally trustworthy. Because the Lord is secure, so too is his character of holiness, which has in no way changed. The Lord remains supreme and holy forever. We will now read the psalm in its entirety. The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with majesty. He is armed with strength. What's more, the world remains stable, without moving. Your throne has been stable from long ago. You have existed from eternity. The seas have lifted up their noise, Lord. The seas have lifted up their noise. The seas would continually lift up their crushing waves. More than the sounds of many waters, the waves of the sea are majestic. The Lord is majestic in the high place. Your decrees are entirely trustworthy. Holiness is fitting for your house, Lord, forever. This has been the overview video for Psalm 93. Our goal in this video is to present a single, coherent interpretation of the psalm. Our exegetical issues video discusses other scholarly views, and our poetic features video explores the distinctively poetic nature of the psalm as Hebrew poetry. Please visit us at scriptura.world to learn more about our project and details about this psalm in particular. Thank you.